Selamat datang di pelatihan Supervisor Nokia, di mana Anda membantu membangun Nokia, di mana semua orang pulang dengan selamat di penghujung hari.
I'm Brian. I'm a telecommunications engineer working on mobile phone masts. Liam's been working with myself for about a year when he first started as a trainee. I've knew him and his family for a lot of years. I used to play football with his father.
Morning, mate.
Morning.
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Do a lot of things in a social circle together.
Yeah, not bad.
What did you get up to over the
I
weekend?
picked Liam up early in the morning in the van.
Where's Kian? No, he's not with us today. Just the two of us.
Early start, about 5:30 I think it was. We had a 3-hour drive up to site. Then Liam fell asleep while we drove for a number of hours up to the site in that morning.
My name's Jason, I'm the Ops Director of the company. We usually have 3-man teams. We do that for a simple reason, because it allows us to progress through our grading system. In essence, we have a team leader, a rigging engineer and a trainee. For this particular job, they were a 2-man team because Kian, which is Brian's lad, had gone off sick. So it wasn't a full, what we class as a full rigging installation, it was a very minor operation. So we'd had to juggle the jobs around to make sure that that activity was doable for a 2-man team. That it would have been acceptable for 2 men to do that. The office staff were a little bit stretched at that given time. I think there's a few holidays.
Yeah, it should hold off, shouldn't it? Yeah.
As a team leader, I've got stuff to do on the ground.
That's just a minor upgrade. It shouldn't take us too long at all.
So if I'm on the ground and he's up the tower, then he's not being supervised. So personally, I think trainees should be in a 3-man gang only for that reason.
You can go and get the kit
Yeah,
for us.
sure.
Yeah. Don't forget the rescue kit.
Cool.
As we arrived to site, the normal routine in the morning would be to do on-site risk assessment, just listing any of the hazards that might be hazardous to anyone on site. Then I would do a toolbox talk to everyone on site that comes onto site, make sure they sign on to that risk assessment and they're aware of all the hazards that are on that site specifically.
Oh, hello, boys, you all right?
Wait, lad, not with you today?
No, he's off sick. He's fine. He'll be back. But it's only a minor upgrade. 2 of us should be fine. Look, I've done the initial checks, so if it's okay with you, quick toolbox talk, and then we'll get started. Is that all right? Okay. It's a fairly clear tower. Weather-wise, a little bit foggy, but I don't think anything to worry about. So pretty standard job all round. We'll sign off on that. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, we'll get started. Be out of your hair pretty soon. Okay.
Lovely.
Cheers. Cheers.
My name's Liam. I'm a trainee rigger. I love heights, I love travelling, I love the people I work with. It all sort of fits. We all rely on each other and trust each other. It feels like a family. And it's good that I work with people I know. I would normally get picked up really early, and then we'd get to site and Brian would do the risk assessment, and then we would make sure everything's all organised, have the correct equipment on.
And have you got your RF monitor?
Yeah.
Well done.
High vis, safety boots, and we would just start working.
Do you want to go up and start taking the photographs? Okay.
Yeah.
You all right with what you're doing?
Yeah, I'll meet you up there.
When we were on the tower, Liam climbed up first to do some pre-photo checks as I was still doing checks with my harness and the equipment that we were going to install that day.
All right.
Yeah.
So then I started to climb up the tower. At that point, Liam was already at the top doing some pre-photos. And then I was still climbing up the tower. Once I got to the top of the tower, Liam had then climbed around the head frame to another position as I approached the top.
I think we're going to need some CTLs for this.
Do you want me to come down and get them?
No, that's okay. Leave it till we're ready. There might be something else that we need as well.
And that's when I heard Liam giving off the scream. More like a confused scream rather than a hurting scream. Turned around after the scream and then I seen Liam fall down. Liam! What I saw after the scream was Liam fell. I seen him falling obviously backwards as he then hit the barbed wire and it had to climb. That's when I sort of seen his limbs starting to move, so I quickly looked away and then just started to climb down to see how he was. I didn't know what to think, to be honest. I didn't know what he'd hurt or how he was going to be. I don't know, as I was climbing down, the delivery guy and the BTS guys were outside the compound near their vehicles. I think they'd thought we'd maybe dropped something off the tower. I shouted to them to call 999.
Liam!
Took all my harness and that off.
Keep still, mate.
And then went down beside Liam.
Try not to move here. Look, keep still.
He was struggling to breathe. His chest was really inflamed.
Look, the ambulance is coming.
I then cut off his harness to try and give him some space. Cut his sort of clothes and that open to try and give him a bit more breathing space. But yeah, he was trying to move around and I was trying to hold him still because I didn't know exactly what was hurt or broken or what was wrong, yeah. While I was attending to Liam, the delivery driver was on the phone to the emergency services. He was finding it hard to give them an exact location of where we were. So I then got him to attend to Liam, sit by him, try and keep him still. Then I went on the phone and given them the exact northings and eastings of exactly where the site was. So I was on the phone to them for about 5 minutes and then the ambulance came right to site. I followed the ambulance into the hospital and then I waited obviously at the hospital while he was being attended to, waiting on his mother and father coming up. But yeah, I didn't really want to see them. I felt it was my fault. He was under my care. Sorry.
So I was in the office working away, phone call, Jason, it's Aaron, who's our rigging manager, he needs to speak to you, it's important. Straight away I knew in his voice that there was a major problem. Jace, we've had a fall from height. Who? Liam. Do we know anything? No, we just know he's fallen from approximately 22.5 metres, 60 odd foot. Don't know anything, whether he's alive, dead. The emergency services are on the way. I was a little bit numb. Couldn't find any words at that time other than it was a bit like the world has stopped. Everything just stopped around me. Everything was just still. Managed to gather my thoughts. I said, right, okay, so we need to get in touch with Brian, make sure Brian's all right, try and get as much detail as we can. I'll pack up my desk and head over to Doncaster. On my way there, I'll speak to Scott Millington, who's our health and safety manager, and Martin Debenham, who's our managing director, and try and obviously get the word out that we've got a major incident. It was a bit of a blur, the journey back. I don't recall much of it. By the time I got back to Doncaster, I don't know, I had probably 20 missed calls of various people asking questions. Went straight home, picked a bag up, told my wife that obviously I'm heading up to Aberdeen to see Liam in hospital. Picked Martin up and Scott, and we set off up to Aberdeen. It was an horrendous journey because obviously we still at that stage didn't know whether Liam. We knew that Liam was alive, but we didn't know the extent of his injuries.
Yeah, so when his mother and father come to the hospital, I said to them I was sorry, but his dad said it's Liam's fault, it's him that's done something wrong. but I still felt that I was responsible.
Just don't know what happened.
I'm just so glad you're here.
I stayed quite late to about 8:30 or something. Then Jason and a few of the other guys from work come up to the hospital.
Cheers. So how was he?
We eventually arrived at the A&E, I think it was about 8:30 at night. That's when the major panic set in, because obviously we were going in to see Liam's parents and we didn't know what kind of effect it had on them. You know, were they going to try and blame us? At this stage we didn't know what any facts, you know, whether the structure had failed or PP failed or anything. All we know is Liam had come off the tower at 22.5 metres.
They told me to try and get home and get some sleep. I had a few hours drive home, but yeah, I was just really wanting home to my family.
Tracy, Alistair. Hi, it's Jason.
Oh, hello, Jace.
And Liam's dad stood up and shook his hand and said, "I'm sorry about this." And I said, "Well, there's nothing to be sorry about. We don't know what's happened yet. You know, the most important thing is Liam." For his dad to apologise straight away, it indicated that he understood that we did things correctly with Liam. He was with an experienced team.
So we've just got a waiting game now.
Yeah. So we stayed with Liam's mum and dad for what seemed an eternity, to be fair, probably only an hour or two, but it just seemed, it's difficult to try and communicate with somebody when they're sat there looking at the son thinking, is he going to be paralysed, will he come out of this, you know, what will be the outcome for Liam?
I can't mind getting up that day. Just the day before I went for a meal with mum and dad, and the next minute I woke up like 5 days later in hospital. I had a bruised kidney, ripped liver, bleed in my brain, a fractured back and pelvis, and I had 2 broken ribs as well. I felt great the minute I got up, but I was in Aberdeen Hospital for 2 months, and then I went down to Kirkcaldy, and that's like a institution for like recovery and that, and I was there for 2 months as well. Yeah, it's had a massive impact on my family. I've got so much closer with everyone, my family, friends and that.
I felt guilty to start with, because as I say, I thought it was my fault. He was under my supervision. I don't know, I think I would have felt different if things weren't such a good outcome. They were a good outcome, so...
The biggest positive is that Liam's working, and he's fine, and he's fit, and he's happy.
Yeah, it's good that we're all working back together. He doesn't remember much of it, so he's happy climbing. He's none of the wiser.
We're making everything we can into a positive, and then I can move on and just get on with my life.
It can happen to anyone, and it's usually the person that's fell that's not got any of the issues. It's everyone else that's to deal with it, whether it's family or the company.
It's something that I wouldn't wish on anybody, even my worst enemy, to be honest. It's not something that I wish anybody to go through.